Beautiful day in October. We're going to do another short video here on woodlot management. Invasive species. We've all heard the term, and maybe we've experienced different plants or stuff that might start growing on properties, Japanese knotweed, different things like that, that are non-native to the area. So how does invasive species affect a woodlot, especially here on the east coast of New Brunswick? Got a tree right here that we're going to look at. This is a beech. At one time, New Brunswick had a very healthy beech population. These trees are known, of course, they produce a beech nut, which is a little triangular nut, well favored by deer, bear, and such, especially in the fall of the year. Unfortunately, our beech population years ago got affected by an invasive species that causes all this cankering. And this is a combination of two things. One was an insect and one was a canker disease that coupled together. Neither the insect nor the disease was native to the east coast of Canada. I believe, and I may be wrong on this, but I'm quite sure I'm right, that it actually came in through the import of wood and wood products from overseas sources. But the beech would normally have a fairly smooth bark. Now if we go just over here, we can see these young beech here. Now these only have a little trace of the canker disease in the bottom. This one here, and we can see another one, that forked one right there. But as you can see, the bark on these trees is fairly smooth right down here at the stump. And that is what the natural form of the bark is for a beech. But now as we come up these trees, we see here the canker is getting into it. And the further up the tree we go, the worse it gets on this smaller one. The bigger one is still quite rough, but not as bad as the smaller one. So what happens after a while is these trees come to this state here. Now beech is a very dense wood, great for firewood. It has various uses. If you're familiar with the old paddleball games, I don't think I'm saying that right, where they snap the little ball around through the targets on the arcade games. Those tables were generally made out of beech. Beech made great hardwood flooring when it used to be straight. Now here's the problem: when this canker get into the beech, the grain of the wood itself twists and turns, and you don't find nice smooth beech wood anymore. This wood gets very twisty, and the growth habit becomes unnatural in it. And another characteristic that you'll start seeing a lot of dead limbs. Even though probably 50% of that crown is still alive, you can see a lot of dead limbs up on that tree. When you get, if you get this in your woodlot, about the only thing you can do with this is turn it into firewood. It splits hard, it's rough to handle, but beech has a fairly high BTU rating, and once it's dried out, makes excellent firewood. But unfortunately, these trees don't live long. If we look right here, here's another one. This is only about 1.5 inches on the butt, and it's been hit and stunted back by the canker. You can see it all the way up the stem. It's unfortunate. There's another one there that's been hit, twisted off. The crown is going. That tree isn't going to live. And it's unfortunate because the beech was it was an essential part, or a very, very vital part of the forest biome, providing feed for the deer, partridge. There's another one here, a fairly young tree. That's probably only a 12 or 15-year-old tree, and it's already pretty much destroyed. You can see the canker has gone all the way up that tree. But the nuts of these trees was an important food source for deer, bear, partridge. When we were young lads, we used to go around and try and find the nuts in the fall. The nuts are enclosed in a little, it's kind of a little shell with kind of a little prickly housing around it. There's 2 or 3 of the nuts in each shell. We'd pick them and pick them apart and eat them like sunflower seeds. You don't get much meat off them, but they were pretty decent. Now here's one here that, this one is pretty well free of canker, but unfortunately, even at this stage, this tree probably won't go to maturity before the canker affects it. So that's what happens when an invasive species gets loose into an environment where it's not natural. You start losing, you know, you always lose when an invasive species comes in, whether it's crowding out natural species or whether it's causing injury to natural species like this. And that's one of the reasons that they have so many safeguards in place now for wood being imported and products being imported, that they have to follow some pretty stiff regulations to make sure that the product is free and clear of any kind of a bug, a disease. But unfortunately, this one got past the fact checker, as it was, and so we're rapidly losing our beech population here in New Brunswick. On these lots here that I own, there used to be a lot of beech, mature trees, and they just die out from the canker and rot, fall over if you don't collect them for firewood. There's a couple up in here that look like they've taken a beating. So when it comes to managing your woodlot, any beech that you've got, if they've got the canker in them at all, they just might as well become firewood, because all they're going to do is house the disease to spread it further to more trees. Here's a young tree here. It's got the canker all the way up it. But this big one here, there's been another one beside it. As you can see, the other tree here is rotted off. We didn't get to that one for firewood in time, but you can see the roughness in the bark all the way up this guy, and there's most of the smaller limbs has died out now. There's still some growth up in the crown, but unfortunately, when you get the smaller limbs dying out like this, or some of the limbs dying out, and then you get some growth on the outside, what happens is the tree will go hollow. In fact, if we step right around here, I think that's what's happening. Okay, you can see here, this tree is starting to open up right up through here. So what's happening is the outside shell of the tree is still growing because of those few live limbs up in the top, but the inside shell of the tree has died and is starting to rot out. And a lot of beech, when we cut them for firewood, they wind up being hollow. Here's another one up in here. They were quite plentiful, and as you can see, you get a lot of saplings coming off of them because of the number of nuts that they put out. But unfortunately, their use for like a furniture wood or anything like that is pretty limited, because the canker and the disease in them, it just twists the wood up crazy. Little hole in the butt there. I imagine you soon see some mice and squirrels starting to use that. I cut a tree one time on one of my woodlots here. It had a small hole like that at the butt, and it had another hole up in the tree about 16, 18 feet up the tree. And when I cut the tree and it went over, there was a hollow all the way up the tree. And that hollow was packed right full of seeds all the way from the ground to up. Well, like I say, I cut the first log off at 16 feet up the tree, and it was packed solid full. And there was a cavity, 6 inches or better, right down the middle of the tree. And the squirrels and mice over the years had carried enough seeds. They started at the bottom of the tree, packing the hole full, and then they would go up the tree to the hole that was up in the near the 16, 18 foot mark. And they went up there and they packed the seeds into the tree. And when I cut the tree, here it was packed full of black and white seeds that they had gathered from the spruce cones and pine cones and whatever else they could find around. Kind of felt sorry for them after I cut it. I actually left the log laying there for a few weeks to see if the mice and squirrels would carry the seeds away, but they didn't, so we wound up using the log for firewood. It was no good for a saw log, but anyway, it's a quick little glimpse at a species of tree that unfortunately is slowly disappearing from the landscape because of a little bug. There's another one there. Young tree, but you can see the hollow into it. The water gets down in there, the center of the tree rots out, and then the tree is gone. So, until next time, keep your woodlot up, have fun, stay safe.